One final example for today. Okay, these two again have different denominators. They are both quadratic though, and they can both be factored. So I'm going to write them in their factored form because if they have any common factors already, then I can make the smallest common denominator with fewer factors, which would make everything a whole lot easier. So let's see, for the first one, things that'll multiply to make a -2 and add to make a +1 would be a +2 and a -1. For the second denominator, I need things that'll multiply to make a -6 and add to make a -1. So that would be a -3 and a +2. Okay, so now that I've got these in their factored form, I can see that both of them have an x plus 2 in them. So I know that the least common denominator is not just going to be all of these factors put together. So I'm going to go ahead and take the first denominator and write it down. And then I'm going to look for whatever is in the second one that's not already there in the first one. So in the second one, there's an x minus 3 that did not appear in the first one. So I'm going to go ahead and write down x minus 3. Now I'm going to compare that second denominator with what I have written down for my first new denominator here. I see the second one there has x minus 3. It's got an x plus 2. And the only thing that's missing is x minus 1. So I could make that second denominator into this least common denominator also. So this would be my least common denominator for the two of them. So I'm just going to write them down so that they're identical on both. All of the factors from each of them appear in each of them. So now, again, the numerators are going to be adjusted based on whatever I did to the denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and write down the original numerators there, put them in parentheses, and then I'm going to go through and look for the whatever's new in the denominator. So for my first one, I had an x plus 2 and an x minus 1. And in my new denominator, I also have an x minus 3. So I'm going to go ahead and write down an x minus 3 next to the old numerator. In the second one, I see there's an x minus 3 here, and there's an x plus 2. So what's new is x minus 1. So I need to write that x minus 1 in the numerator as well. Now I've got the same denominator for both of these, and the numerators are balanced out with it. I've adjusted them for that new denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and write down the least common denominator as one big fraction here. And then write down the two numerators. It says minus between them, so that's minus x times x minus 1. And now I just need to simplify. So I'm going to say x plus 2, x minus 1. This is the least common denominator for the two of them. And then I need to distribute this 3 in here, so that would give me 3x minus 9. And over here, I've got a minus x that I'm distributing. So that would give me a negative x squared, and then a negative x times a negative 1 would be plus x. All right, I'm running out of room there on the bottom of the screen, so I'm going to make another column here. I'll copy down that common denominator one more time. And then I'm going to combine like terms and also put it in standard form in the numerator. So the first term that should be there should be the negative x squared. Then I've got two terms that have x's in them. I've got a 3x plus an x, so that would be plus 4x. And then my constant, there's only one constant, and that's a minus 9. Okay, with that numerator, I would want to factor it if possible. The only thing I could really do here is factor out a negative 1. Since there is no negative 1 and there are no quadratic factors in the denominator, irreducible quadratic factors, then I'm not going to be able to reduce this at all, so I can just leave it like this. Okay, now you try this next one on your notes here and then answer on the Google form.